This is NDTV, and you're watching Classics.
Hello and welcome to Walk the Talk. I am Shekhar Gupta and I will waste no time introducing my guest to you because my guest today is somebody who sometimes defies description. Sushmita Sen, welcome to Walk the Talk.
Oh, that's the best introduction I've ever had.
I don't know how to describe you. You know, people say thinking man's dream date, any man's dream date, but I would put one rider, a dream date as long as the man is not in awe of you, which will be very few men.
No, I think there's quite a bit of that. I mean, there's a lot of secure people in this world. It's really a matter of being in the right place at the right time. Incidentally, Ben, you're looking at a gentleman who's completely a perfect example of no awe and complete warmness. And I think that's
Thank you very much. That's very charming, but I am not easily fooled. I'm a journalist trained to be very hard-nosed and very skeptical.
You mean journalists don't get charmed? Ah, that's sad.
They're very thick-skinned. If we got charmed easily, there'll be trouble.
We like trouble, don't we?
You know, there was I will tell you a small story. And Tony Blair came on one of his official visits, and we were all lined up at a banquet. Mr. Vajpayee was introducing all of us, and Tony Blair and Mr. Vajpayee came to me, next to me, and Mr. Vajpayee said, "Here is so-and-so, an eminent Indian editor, incorruptible." And Tony Blair said, "An incorruptible, eminent editor. Sir, how nice to meet you. I've been searching for one in England." So if journalists start getting charmed so easily, there'll be trouble. That's what I mean.
But see, you remember this episode. That means somewhere you were charmed.
Great British sense of humor, yes.
Yeah, I know. I think it's really a matter of when we talk about men and if there's a sense of awe in them. I think it's a matter of their level of security. Any man's date, yeah, I might have a problem with that. But a thinking man's date, definitely, because it's stimulating to the mind.
I said any man's dream date. The man can dream. You don't have to be part of it.
Of course, and the date doesn't have to happen.
Yeah, because a lot of the romance in India runs on dream sequences, at least in our cinema.
Yeah, and those high-speed, very slow running. You want to try doing one of these things? It's really cool. You have to put your left and your right consecutively.
Not in this place. I don't even swim.
Actually, this is the ideal
If
place
I go for
to
a
do
toss,
it. You don't swim?
I don't do many things right.
There, you got that on tape. You have it on record.
So you describe yourself. What makes you different?
Oh.
Different from your ilk? Or what is Sushmita Sen?
Oh, this is a tough question. In fact, very well asked, Shekhar, because I don't know. I've never really tried to analyze myself that much. But as a part of my profession, I find that happens often. I'm being analyzed. She's very humane. She's very full of contradictions. She is a woman who loves being one. She loves power. She loves to know, to be adventurous, to travel, to find out what her highest, her best side is. And at times she is completely an unknown entity to her own self, which is why I think the most amazing part about myself is the fact that I find myself mysterious.
And when is she vulnerable?
You're not going to catch me doing that now. She's vulnerable quite a bit, actually.
When?
When? I'm my most vulnerable when I'm alone with myself and when I'm with my daughter. I think she brings out...
That's true of all of us parents.
Tana, and you have two babies.
Absolutely.
And he's such a rocking daddy. I'm not trying to charm him, but he has a 24-year-old daughter.
Listen,
I mean, look at him. You're a rock
Sushmita,
star.
we'll meet you when your daughter is 24.
Yes, and I hope I look like that.
You will not complain and we will not complain. So you talk about being different. You know, tell me a little bit about your humane side and a little bit about your tough side.
I think the humane side is something that all of us are basically born with. It's just essentially us.
But a lot of people
The
seem to
tough
lose it in the
side,
showbiz, which is so tough.
The tough side actually comes from the humane side. The humane side, when you experiment with it, when you, with vulnerability, express that side of yourself, there are times when you're cornered and you don't know what just happened. You were being honest or you were being approachable, you were being humane. And at that moment, you sort of say, no, you know, maybe from a distance, a little distance. Itna zyada paas bhi nahi aana chahiye that it becomes difficult to comprehend where you're coming from. So it's the humane side actually teaches the tougher side.
And what's your tough side? Give me an example.
Okay, if you dare me, I will do it. I will definitely do it, and I will do it very well. I think there are times when I just go push. You know, there are times when I just totally go
You have an example of when you were dared and you did it? And later said,
all
oh,
my life. All my life. I often say that most of the biggest incidents in my life have been accidents.
tell me about some,
Accidents.
a couple.
Okay, when I was a kid, I watched Rakesh Sharma go to space. I didn't know much about him, but I did watch my mother and father howling away in front of the TV. And I walked up to Baba and I said, Baba, ki holo? What happened? And he said, Take, who's he? And Daddy said, Daddy was so emotional that instead of saying that's Rakesh Sharma, he turned around and said, Ma, he's famous. And it just got stuck in my head that I wanted to be famous because I wanted to be on television and wanted people who didn't know me from Adams to cry for me, to feel for me like that. And I think that when Daddy sort of sat and watched the Miss Universe pageant with me and said, okay, look at this girl, Madhu Sapre, she's doing so well. And I said, I do even better. And Baba said, you know, sitting on your couch, it's a very big, you know.
So now we know you're
thing
much
to
younger
do.
than Madhu Sapre.
Yeah, she was before me. And so, yeah. So he
But
said,
do you-
you know, it's easier said than done. Get out of this couch. Go out there and do it. So the day I actually won it, my father, he called me from India because he couldn't afford to fly down to come to Manila. So he called me from India and said, আমি বলতে পারছি না কিছু. He was howling away and he said, I can't speak. But I watched you on TV.
And allow me to digress a little. You remember when Mrs. Gandhi asked Rakesh Sharma,
सारे
आपको
जहां
भारत
से
कैसा लग रहा
अच्छा
है? You remember
हिंदुस्तान
that?
हमारा. I can never forget it because that was that moment.
And you were driven in a horse cart after that.
Yes,
draped
on
in
the
the tricolour.
Rashtrapati Bhavan, yes. And no, not just that. It was this sense of, in that one moment, you know, and Shekhar, so many times I say, why do, you know, people say, why do we go back to Miss World and Miss Universe? And those are our past and it's gone behind us. But you can't fathom for an 18-year-old girl to stand on an international stage and to know that for the very first time, your country has something where billions of people are watching it live. And somebody in Manila who doesn't know you from Adams is sparing all the debts, dropping all their interest rates. That's what they're doing as a part of the Indian people in Manila doing that, or feeding poor people. People had this sense of unity. In fact, I remember CNN, they asked me a question. It was at the press conference. They said, so, Miss Sen, you are a Hindu from India? And I said, yes. Well, yeah, I'm born into the Hindu religion. And he says, then what do you think must be the reaction of the Muslims in your country? Do you feel that they feel you are their representative as much as you are? And that was the moment when I realized, I said, Jesus, they don't even realize that that's the one moment when you forget those small aspects. To me, that was so small at that moment. What did it matter where she came from? East, you know, she was a Hindu.
So at the age of 18 also, that tricolor sari mattered to you?
And it always will. Because, you know, Shekhar, nobody will ever understand what it is to have your identity as an Indian before people even know your name, they know where you come, you know, what you do, how you live. My entire identity for almost 3 months was Miss India. And most places in the world, in South America, to this day, they'll say, oh, Miss Universe, Miss Universo from Miss India, she's Indian. So that has been my greatest identity. I mean,
You know,
I'm
since you
extremely
mentioned about
patriotic.
being 18 at that point, I was chatting with Shobha Day, because I
Yes.
know so little about you, film stars, my politicians I can handle.
You were telling me that
So
earlier.
I was researching,
Yeah.
and I asked Shobha, I said, you know all about these people, tell me about this one. And she said, one thing I remember about her is, she and I were on a discussion, I think with Nikki Bedi, when she was 18, and she was asked, what are the qualities she wants in a man? And she immediately said, should be good in bed. Yes. And she said for an 18-year-old, that was very spunky.
Yeah, Miss Day, however, didn't like that statement very much initially because I remember her writing about it and saying
was
that
trying to figure
I was
out-
appalled by this 18-year-old girl speaking like this. No, this 18-year-old girl.
We all get used to spunky kids.
No, I don't think it's really about being spunky. I think it's about being pardalish. It's about being non-hypocritical. To say that I'm 18, I'm okay to be on an international stage, I'm okay to represent my country. I'm okay for all that, but I'm not okay to speak about a man in bed, which I think is
So
hypocritical.
did you shock Nikki Bedi? That took
No, I
some
don't
doing.
think-
That would take some doing.
Nikki was not shocked at all. I think Miss Day was. Miss Day definitely was.
But she remembers it.
Yes, she does.
And you've lived life like that. You've spoken your mind always.
Yes. That's part of being Sushmita. There, coming back to your previous question. Yeah, I think that's part of my...
Because in your business, most people don't do that. Most people become different personas.
Yeah, I think we kind of have to draw a line, Shekhar, and understand that playing puja and arti and, you know, mena, ina, dina are all very beautiful. They are characters. But you can't lose Sushmita in the process of playing these women. Because the day I lose her, I have no business playing 20 different people.
But you've seen people in the world of glamour and cinema losing
Yes.
themselves.
Yes, I have.
So Ajay Devgan talked about this. He talked about some people who actually begin to look like and talk like the famous characters they've played.
You're right, absolutely. It does happen. I mean, for instance, without being judgmental about anybody else, let's speak about me. I shot for a film called Chingari, in which for the first time I played a rural woman from a gaon, and I played a prostitute. And I used to speak like this, you know, on the set. कि अरे क्या कर रही हो इधर आ जाओ बैठ जाओ हम कब से बुला रहे हैं तो का सुनाई नहीं देता है क्या so all this going on I was so in love with Vasanti the woman but there came a time when I'd come back to my hotel room and I'd sit and speak to my sister and say बड़ी क्या कर रही है दे ना रे चाय दे ना रे and I'd say what am I doing you know there are times when that does happen you live your characters there are times but you have to snap out of it so sooner or later you need to snap out of it.
Because it's a world of make-believe. It can overwhelm you.
It can. It can. And after years of being in the business, it still can.
See, the other thing about you becoming Miss Universe, you know, before that we all talked about this. Other Indians had made it in the past. But somehow you made this global beauty part of the India brand. You know, the whole beauty business became much more popular, much more acceptable. Now we have Miss Noida, Miss Dehradun, Miss Madurai, Miss Coimbatore, Miss wherever.
Yeah.
Huh?
You're funny.
So, that's a fact. Miss Tourism, Miss Travel,
That's
Miss all
right.
kinds of
There's a
things,
lot
right?
of- yes.
Yeah, you know,
A lot of misses happening.
It's an interesting thing. It's a social phenomenon. It's almost like Antakshri.
And if you ask me personally, I think it's a great idea.
It's a great idea.
Because
Why
a
is
lot
it a
of
great
young
idea?
people get an opportunity to understand competitiveness. They come to get a platform from where they can make, even if that much of a difference, they have a platform to do that.
But it's a cruel business.
That depends how you perceive it.
Once you get there,
That depends how you perceive it, really.
I mean, you-
Because, I'm sorry.
Carry
to
on, carry
interrupt you. No, why I talk of perception is because when I wanted to join the business, my father threw the biggest fit. I'm a Bengali girl from a good family doing all these things, you know, people get exploited in this business, Shona. You're not to do something like this. And I remember saying, Baba, but what's the whole point? You've told me what's right and wrong. Eventually I have to go out there and face it. So let me do it now, younger the better. And Baba said, okay, fine. Initially, I will accompany you. I will sit outside through your shoot. He did that, I'm afraid. I used to actually sit outside to get
How
so
long for?
uncomfortable. 6 months. Yeah, I did that for 6 months. 7 months. I
and then
think.
what happened? He got tired, or
No.
or he figured you could handle it.
He figured that the world outside is not so bad. It's if we keep looking for the bad in people, we kind of pull it out of them. And he has enough trust in his daughter, and I think I've never done anything in my life to let him down on that account.
So if your daughter were to get into something like this, what is it that you will caution her about?
I'd say, girl, you must know what you're getting yourself into, A. B, you've got to have some serious strength of character to be able to retain yourself and not lose yourself in this whole process. And you would have to be someone who knows how to watch what she says. Because your intention may be fantastic, but it can get communicated incorrectly.
Have you caught yourself making a false move like that or saying something you shouldn't have said?
This is where your research needs to come in. Oh yes, let me
I'm
tell you,
looking
Shekhar.
at confessions. I'm not.
So,
I'm not
Father,
looking for
I
my-
confess to the fact that for almost the first 2.5 years of me being an actor, I was called everything from a homebreaker to the other woman to just about everything.
Well, if I based my research on film magazines,
Yeah, well,
I'll
people out there do read
I'll
film
get
magazines, and
completely
this
mixed
is
up
for
in
their
my head.
benefit. Yeah, so there was a lot written. I banned the press for almost a year. Banned it so bad that I used to cover my head and walk around. I said, I don't want to talk.
But was it because you were angry with the press, or was that a diva act?
I
A
wasn't.
bit like
I
Rekha.
I
believe you go into these reclusive phases.
My approachability as a diva is this close. That to me is a diva. You know, diva is not someone who's up on a tower and you can't approach her. But by my definition, yes, it was purely because I was disappointed with the press. Very, very disappointed with the press.
And was it all to do with rumors, or?
No, it had to do with facts. Facts that was nobody else's business.
Like what? Give me some examples of what made you really angry.
I was in a relationship with a man who was married before. He was going through a divorce, and then going to the wife, interviewing her, bringing this whole ugliness into the picture. See, I just think that's not your business. Yeah, people.
You want to name him? You want me to name him?
No, Vikram Bhatt, not a problem.
Right.
It's just that it's in the past. I don't want to keep bringing it in the foreground as an example.
But that's unusual. Not many women in your business, not even men, would do so. That's what makes you different.
Well, no, not really. I think it was really a matter of I would have lost myself had I not stood up for it at that point. Because it was like, you know, my conscience and my livability with my conscience is purely my business.
Is it true that he's doing an autobiographical film now that seems
you'll
to
have
run in the butt?
No, that you
butt
have to
DNA.
ask him. But you can be rest assured about one thing, that the man I was in love with, the man I spent almost 3 years of my life with, is not a man who'd do something like that. So if this man is making it, then it's not the man I was in love with, so I don't know.